Hey pros, thanks so much for watching this video. Today we're going to be talking about how we're washing this metal warehouse. This property is owned by Second Harvest of the Big Bend, which is one of our area's food distribution networks. It's a not-for-profit company. We're going to go and wash this building. It hasn't been washed in about 5 years. I know because I was the last person that washed it. But we're going to get into the methodology behind washing this and the proper percentages to use, how to do it, and the best way to take care of this metal so you don't cause problems on here. We've been washing this building, like I said, for about 5 years. The paint has not oxidized on here, really just because we're doing it the right way. So listen up and hope you enjoy the video. Hey guys, it's Ray with Spray Wash. Today we are working on a metal warehouse and I want to go over a couple of things on here with you. One of the things you most want to check on with a metal building is to check and see what the oxidation code is like. So just simply run your hand across that and see how much of the paint, of the old oxidized paint, gets off on your hand. So this building is not extremely oxidized. There's a little bit coming off, which is normal for these. As typical, the north side is dirtier than the most. Also, notice those cut marks in the building. Always photo document any damage to the building. While those marks aren't as noticeable now while it's dirty, whenever the building's cleaned up, they're really going to pop out, so you can show the owner they were already there. Now, too much pressure on oxidized paint can really lead to a lot of striping and very unsatisfactory results for the customer. Since this property is not extremely oxidized, we still don't want to disturb the paint. So we are rinsing with an open ball valve on our pressure washer. I'll show you how much pressure that's producing here in just a second, but it's not going to be enough pressure to disturb the oxidation coat, but it is going to allow us to get 5.5 gallons a minute on this pressure washer of water out on there to assist with the rinse. So here we are with an open ball valve on our pressure washer. That's really not a lot of pressure whatsoever, not causing any pain to our hands. Now we are working with both a booster pump and a pressure washer on here. Josh has gone and applied from about where the tractor trailer is. You can see where the building's wet. Ish is on the pressure washer. Now on this wash we're using both the booster pump, which Josh is spraying with, and a pressure washer, which Ish is spraying with. We began with putting a solution on with the booster pump. Then we had about a 5 to 10 minute dwell time. We turned the pressure washer on, and Ishmael is coming back and rinsing, doing a preliminary rinse with the pressure washer. Then Josh has switched to water, and we've got a little bit of Agent Halt in there, which is a bleach neutralizer. He's doing a final rinse with Agent Halt and water on this property, just to help neutralize any type of bleaching action that takes place. Some people will actually skip the Agent Halt portion of this and just do a very good rinse on there. I recommend the Agent Halt because we are dealing with a metal. I mean, we can see there's some rust stains here on this building. We don't want to exacerbate any rust, so by putting the Agent Halt on there and neutralizing the bleach, it's really just one extra step. It's one of the reasons we can also get a premium for our services, because we say, hey, we're doing this extra step. We're going to neutralize anything we put on your property on here. So Josh is now on rinse, no longer on application, and Ish is on rinse. Now I think one of the largest problems that people have when washing metal is washing it at too hot of a mix. You can see we're at about a 1.25 mixture here on the SH. That's where we're leaving the proportioner at. If we have touch-up areas, we'll hit them a second time, but I'd rather put too little chemical on there than too much chemical. And more about over-chemicaling here a little bit later in this video. And don't wash in the direct sunlight. You know, even though we're using a booster pump and a proportioner on this job, there's really no reason at all that you can't downstream a building like this. Very, very within the confines of downstreaming. So don't feel you need to have a booster pump proportioner to wash something like this. Going in and making a 50-50 mixture of a 12.5% and then 50% water in a 5-gallon bucket. Put your downstreamer in that. That's going to get you roughly just less than a 1% house mix on there. Take your surfactant of choice, put that in there for something like this. We'd love Camouflage from Agent Clean and Secret Agent, their surfactant, and spray that on here. It's not necessarily rocket science. Things like this are a pretty easy cleanup. Just make sure you don't use too much pressure, and make sure you work on the cool side of the building, because the hot chemicals, and by hot I mean strong, the stronger the chemical you're using, the more likely you are to cause your own problems here. The more likely you are to actually oxidize this building and cause an issue where there wasn't one before. In fact, I'd rather spray the whole building down, and then if there's any trouble areas or problem areas, I could always go back and hit those a second time with the same mix instead of putting too strong of a mix out there over the whole building. I'm going to stand back and give you a wide angle, and if you notice, we don't have any striping. We don't have any problem with pressure knocking off some oxidation and leaving others. It's not a striped up cleaning job. Looks just as good as it's going to get. We are going to go attack these rust stains that we have occasionally from their sprinklers. I'll show you how to do that next. I know there's some name brand products out there that really do a good job for rust removal. Rust removal on this aluminum siding here, this metal siding, really isn't very tough to do. So I'm going with a much cheaper alternative. Rust Aid Rust Stain Remover. It's made by Goof Off. You can pick this up at Ace Hardware's. You can get it on Amazon. Runs roughly $10–12 a gallon. I'm just going to apply this with a pump-up sprayer, and we'll see what happens on our results here. We'll let that dwell on there for a minute. You can see it starting to fade already. And we'll check on that in just a minute. All right, we've had a couple of minute dwell time, so looks like it's starting to remove it here. I'm going to reapply to keep it wet and give it another round. Looking good. It's coming right on off there. Now, just like with bleach, when we rinse, we're going to come in here and rinse this mild acid that we've put on here to remove these rust stains. You just don't want to leave any type of chemical sitting on these buildings. It's good process, good standard operating procedure to always rinse what you put on there after the appropriate dwell time. Boom. Another reason you really want to avoid high pressure on buildings such as this is just the nature of their construction. I got a close-up here of the wall. Typically speaking, what's going to happen is you've got a slab. So this is a wall. The slab is on top of this stem wall here. This would be the base level of the floor. You'll have a metal capper which goes in, wraps around the inside. This siding is screwed to that metal part of the base. Or this might be separate with a piece screwed into it, an L bracket screwed into this. This siding is screwed into this. There may be some foam behind this to help insulate, but I'm actually holding my hand right here and I can feel cold air rushing out of this bottom crack. This building is not that necessarily that well insulated or even sealed up from the outside elements. So high pressure can force water inside of this building where you really don't want it to be. Another good reason to use a low pressure, I would dare say that really nothing more than 500 psi should be used on the exterior of this building. Another big area of concern is to try and work where the metal is not hot. The hotter the metal, the quicker your evaporation. The more your evaporation, the stronger your mix becomes. So essentially your 10% mix, as the water dries up out of that, you're leaving a much stronger mix of SH, almost straight SH on that property. So whenever you can work in the shade so you have a longer dwell time, it's really superior and it'll lessen your chances of causing oxidation on this building. So typically speaking, in the mornings we'll work on the north and the west side. And then in the evenings or the afternoon, as the sun makes its arc and goes across, we'll start working on the east side, which has been in the sun all morning. Pricing is always very weird to talk about because there's so many variables in the pricing. The market that you're in dictates price. The services that you give dictate price. How hungry you might be dictates price. So a lot of different things, and what I can charge in Tallahassee, Florida might be a great difference in what you could charge in Norfolk, Virginia, or somewhere in Michigan. I mean, it's just, pricing is just different all over the board. But on a project such as this, a very basic wash on here, we're around $3,000 for this. It's a one truck, two-person operation. It'll take us one day to do on here. Now we'll probably also add on the loading docks and the concrete, and that will be extra fees on here, but just under $3,000 is our price for washing the building out itself. So just to recap, first off, we want to make sure that the building we're washing isn't too terribly oxidized. If it is oxidized, we really want to back off on the pressure. Second off, we want to make sure we're not using too strong of a chemical mixture on this building. Too strong of a chemical, namely bleach, can actually cause this metal to flash oxidize and leave you with a powdery oxidized surface where you didn't have one to start with. Again, low pressure is always a great idea on these buildings. They're not necessarily super air or watertight. You can force a lot of water into the building where it's not intended to go. Additionally, work away from the sun. Do the east side in the afternoons, the west side in the mornings on these buildings. That way the metal is cooler. You won't have as much flash drying on there. Additionally, try a downstreamer on here if that's how you're equipped. Don't be scared to do this if you don't have a booster pump or a proportioner. These buildings really clean up nicely. Just watch out for the oxidation. Also remember, this is a 30-year-old building too. Unless it's been repainted, set the expectations correctly with the customer. You may not create an absolute miracle, but you can at least get a lot of dirt, grime, algae, and mildew off the building. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Thank you for being a pro.